After what we see on today's badge cam and dash cam, there was quite a community outrage, but was it warranted? Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense. What began as a traffic investigation, as pulling somebody over for a traffic violation, then as the officer pursued that person because they didn't pull over, eventually they did for a minute and then they ran. The dispatch tells him that the car is stolen, so he's going to chase that car for a while. He's going to kind of chase it into a dead-end alley. Let's listen into what happens from here.
3342, I'm adding you. You should be advised, there's going to be one car right down the road from there.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Do it now! Stop!
3334, what's your direction?
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Watching just the badge cam here, you see the officer come around the back of his car. This driver puts it in drive. He puts 3 shots, 2 through the windshield and 1 through the passenger's side window. One of those shots hit the driver and he wrecks the car up. Let's continue to listen in from here.
Get on the ground! Do it now! EMS 10. I'm not going to hurt you. Ground. I need to get him treatment. He ran at me with the car. I am not going to hurt you, but you need to listen to me. I'm 26 with one suffering from a gunshot wound to the neck. And I've got one running towards west on West Market Street.
The passenger was unhurt. The driver, who was hit in the neck, did not survive his injuries, though you saw the officer did pretty much everything he could in order to try to preserve that young man's life. The district attorney determined that the officer's actions here were justified. We'll talk about that in the lessons, and the family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit in this one. You know, these are one of those things that I think that the badge cam with its skewed perspective and the fisheye lens doesn't necessarily show us all of the urgency of the issue. So let's talk about that in the lessons. You know, Mike, I think we're pretty well on the record at this point that we really don't love a lot of chases because of the danger to the community. But, you know, there are some, and I think this is kind of one of them, that it's quite reasonable. You got somebody who fled from a traffic stop. All right, we need to get you, stopped and figure out what's going on here. It's late at night. There's not a lot of traffic, so there's very lower danger to the community. And so this is one of those that, while, again, I'm not a big fan of a lot of pursuits, I think this one's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, so why do we object to pursuits, you might be asking yourself? Why do John and Mike have a problem with high-speed chases unless they're absolutely necessary? Obviously, the problem is you're risking the lives of other people on the road who didn't want to be invited to your pursuit, right? You see it all the time. You know, LA is famous for these things. The traffic helicopter gets overhead and everybody's glued to their TV because what they think they're about to see is either a terrible accident or, potentially a shooting or whatever, or a foot chase, I should say. At 2 in the morning, I can't read the timestamp on this, but it's obviously early morning or very late night. There aren't many people on the road. You can do it. You can conduct a pursuit without nearly as much danger to the public. Look, stolen cars, frequently the people occupying a stolen car have way, way worse felonies they've committed or are on the way to commit. So stolen cars, you want to get stopped if you can. This pursuit, I think, was fine.
Yeah, I really think that's part of it. By long experience, cops learn that when you find a stolen car, you're not going to arrest somebody for a stolen car. You got a whole bunch. It's like a gateway drug of stupidity for this officer. Now, as the officer finds this kid, it really is a kid who's stuck in a dead end, and he comes up, all right, I'm going to stop the car. Now the kid does trade paint with him. And I do think we need to think about that just a minute, because of course, when we're looking at the dash cam here, it looks like he's doing so in order to flee rather than to attack. But at the same time, that's indicative of, oh, okay, we just committed an assault, probably at the very least. And so does that raise the level of threat in the officer's eyes that he's willing to use the car like that? And it's a stolen car? Yeah, I think it probably does. And so it's always the totality of the circumstances that we're looking at, right?
Absolutely. For people who've never been around someone in a motor vehicle trying to flee and being willing to bash into stuff. Look, he didn't ram this car, and we're not trying to be dramatic, right? It was an incidental strike of the car. He was trying to flee. It looks like at this point, but the sort of electricity in the air when someone is cars are hitting next to each other, it's very loud. It's very off-putting, and it'll give you a sense of fear. It's a real thing. I've been around it. For me, it was at the border. With people got on my case last time because I used the wrong term, stanchions, bollards, whatever, in the lines at the port of entry in San Isidro, and someone is bashing into the car in front of them, behind them, into those bollards, trying to get away, and it's dangerous and it's scary. So I think in this instance, that certainly heightened the officer's anxiety and sense of danger, although it wasn't dangerous to him directly. It's a real thing. I've experienced it in real life.
Yeah, and when you have, again, that amps up the danger signs, and we always look at totality of the circumstances. Now, the officer then, bails out of the patrol cruiser at this point because he's going to have to get out of that cruiser. He's got him in kind of an enclosed area here. And one of the things I want to notice, he comes all the way around the back of the car. I got no problems with that. And he comes all the way around the car out into the open. Now, I will just about guarantee you that in his memory, he has no memory of choosing to get that far around. We see this all the time. We have actual research studies on officers' remembered path of travel versus their actual path of travel, and they bear very little resemblance to each other because of just the way that operational memory works. But I want us as a mental rep to recognize that when you see that guy, hey, he's willing to use this car as an impact device, try to keep your cruiser between you and that car, because if you can keep your cruiser between you and him, well, then that takes the danger away. That really lessens the risk that you are at, which can give you a lot more options. I'm not blaming him for coming around here. He's trying to effect an arrest. I'm saying the smartest thing, the best tactical thing to do here is to at least maintain some cover with that car so that way he can't get to you without going through it, and that gives you protection, and that maybe would have given him more options here, Mike.
Now, some of you might be asking yourselves, what's the difference between this and some other cases? There's been occasions where John and I have roundly condemned a law enforcement officer for putting his or herself in front of a car to precipitate a shooting, right? I think we all know what we're talking about here. That's not what I'm seeing here. I have 30 years of experience. I don't believe that's what he was trying to do. He wasn't inviting, the person to come at him so he could pull the trigger. But if you are a law enforcement officer watching this, remember that car, first of all, it's a stolen car, right? As I said earlier, usually it's a felon already. The person's already a felon. Frequently they're armed. So I would let this breathe a minute, stay behind my car if I could, because, stepping out from behind it, not only do you invite the possibility of being run over, but shot at, right? So that car is covered for more than one thing. I think John covered all the rest of the points we wanted to make here. But yeah, just try to bear in mind, this is a very dynamic situation. It's unfolding very rapidly, and the officer is making second-by-second decisions in this moment about what to do next, and this is where we are.
And now I want you to notice, this right here is a half a second before the shot breaks. Remember, in a complicated, complex environment, it takes 0.56 seconds, plus or minus 0.08, that's research-backed, to make a decision, program the action from the stimulus to when the actual action happens. So this is right about where the officer was when he made the decision to shoot. When the stimulus came in that says, I have to shoot this guy, this is what he is looking at. Now we got to ask the question, what are we seeing versus what is the officer seeing? Remember, this badge cam is not his eyes and does not have the same foveal vision. But what I can see here is the fact that the headlights are shining right at the officer. Can he see the tires? Can he see the motion? Or does he just see them getting bigger and what we call the looming effect? What we call this getting vastly closer super fast. and coming right for him. I think that a reasonable person put in those circumstances would feel that way. Now we can see later, after the critical moment has passed, that he's trying to get away. But I don't know that the officer can see that in that moment. And so is it the most ideal outcome? No, but would a normal, typical person trained as an officer is trained, under the circumstances the officer is it reasonable to think that he did believe that this was a threat to his life? I think the answer to that is probably yes. So I don't have a problem with it. I think in a criminal court, I don't think that any charges would have a hope in heck, because I don't think you can prove not beyond a reasonable doubt. Though in a civil case, Mike, as a preponderance of the evidence standard, I don't know what a jury would say here.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be on the jury. I wouldn't want to be the one defending this case in court. I know this sounds like we're all over the map here, but I promise you we're not. As I said earlier, John and I have roundly criticized officers who put themselves in the path of danger. I understand that you feel like maybe he should have known somehow that this guy was going to turn to his left, our right, and go around him. The same reason it took him that length of time, I don't have the time off the top of my head, John said it earlier, that amount of time it took him to make a decision and then act on it, right, is similar to the amount of time we're going to see here in a moment where he stopped shooting. And I think we're going to get comments almost certainly on that last shot through the side window. That seemed egregious, but it takes the brain a moment, right, to react to what it's observing, orient itself, and then act on what it's the new information that's coming in. So I think anyone looking at this who doesn't like it, who feels like this is egregious or over the top or whatever, John and I understand where you're coming from, and we understand how you could see it that way. Absolutely. John, I think you wanted to discuss this last shot here.
Yeah, I do think I want to discuss this last shot simply because, people are going to say, right, they're going to be like, well, but wait a minute, but what about this shot here? And I just want to mention the way that this works, okay, is that the brain has not only a start function, but a stop function. And in order to stop an action, it actually takes longer than you think it does, because when we have a start action, like start pressing the trigger, then those impulses go through the nerves. And in order to send a stop signal, it has to go behind the go signal. So again, it has to be afterwards. And that can take a half second to even a full second to program that action and get it to the actual motor neurons. That's just human performance and actual neurobiology, not any kind of apology for anybody's actions. That's just the way the human body works. So when you say, well, wait a minute, this one through the passenger side was too late. But again, it all happened in under a second. It was that first impulse that he said, shoot. And then that led to 3 trigger presses, very common. And again, as soon as he got the stop, it's past me. It's not actually going to threaten me here. He did stop. And so I don't know which of the 3 rounds that he fired ended up hitting the driver of the car here. But I really think that third shot there, because of the way that humans work, and I'm not apologizing for him as a cop. I've said this about private citizen encounters plenty of times and said it in court about private citizen encounters. That stop encoding takes some time. And we've seen time to stop that could be 3, 4, 5. I've seen 6 shots in that time that it could take in order to encode that time. So this is just the way that humanity works. This is all humans in this, so I don't have a problem with it at all. And then finally, Mike, I want to talk just a little bit about the officer's kind of actions afterward. I don't see any of what he did as performative here. He said, oh my God, I thought he was running, going to run me over. And then I think he did everything he could in order to try to save this driver's life. And so he certainly doesn't come off to me as somebody who was out for blood.
Yeah, performative is the key word, right? You can kind of sense sometimes when it could be an officer, it could be anybody who knows they're on camera and they comport themselves a certain kind of way, right? Because they know they're being watched and they're being recorded. We had that really crazy case, I believe it was in near Houston, Texas, where that deputy is sort of doing a running narration of her incident, like, "Oh, I may have to shoot him," and then a second later, I'm gonna have to shoot him. "Oh, I shot him." Like, to me, that's clearly performative. In this case, these seem like really excited, spontaneous utterances that he's making. I think he is concerned. I think he does want to go help the driver. But Listen, another thing, we talk about, hey, if you're a felon out there doing felony stuff, if this is your friend bleeding in the front seat, you need to do exactly what this officer is telling you and do it quickly, right? So your friend can get some help. I didn't sense any of those sorts of things from this officer. I think he is truly in a very traumatic situation and acting like a human being, frankly.
Yeah, and listen, again, Mike hit on it just a little bit. A lesson for all the felons out there: don't steal cars. And when you do steal a car and a cop tries to pull you over for a traffic violation, don't run from the cops, because bad stuff happens when you do, right? So this was all preventable, and I don't put it on the officer, I put it on the offenders, is where that is. Again, knowing human performance, I think when you watch this one through with kind of without an understanding of how humanity actually functions under stress, I think this one could look kind of not so great and kind of sketchy. But when you look at it the way that it actually is and what human performance and actual, operational work does, I can't blame the officer for what he did. I think he covered his ass.